Welcome to a piece of the past. Here, history is not loud, it's a whisper, a candle's glow, a parchment's crinkle, a tale passed gently through time. This is your sanctuary of soft storytelling, where you'll wander quiet corridors of forgotten places, breathe in the stillness of centuries, and find calm in the echoes of the past. So get cozy and come closer. Let the past whisper to you. Close your eyes and imagine the soft gray of dawn settling across a medieval landscape. The rooster crows in the distance, a sound so familiar it barely stirs the villagers from their sleep. In the dim glow of morning, smoke rises lazily from thatched roofs where hearth fires have smoldered through the night. The village is waking. A medieval village was more than just a cluster of homes. It was a world in miniature, a community bound together by land, by labor, and by faith. Most people in the Middle Ages would never travel far from the place of their birth. For them, the village was their universe, their safety, and their burden. Picture it, a handful of huts clustered along a dirt track, their walls woven of wattle and daub, their roofs thatched with straw. Beyond them, open fields stretched outward in great strips, divided not by fences, but by custom. Each family tends scattered strips in different fields, ensuring both hardship and fairness. One plot may be fertile, another rocky. Together, they balance survival. At the village's heart stands the manor house, the residence of the local lord or his steward. It is not a castle, but a sturdy timber or stone hall, commanding respect simply by its size. Close by, rising above all else, is the church. Its simple spire or wooden cross marks the sacred center of village life. Every Sunday, bells call the villagers together, echoing across fields and woods. Life here moves not by the hour, but by the season. Spring brings plowing and sowing, the promise of growth. Summer demands endless labor, tending crops, mending roofs, cutting hay. Autumn is the time of harvest, when every hand, men, women, and children alike, gathers what the land has offered. And winter is both rest and trial, when stores run low and hunger prowls like a shadow. The air is filled with sounds that never change. The lowing of cattle, the bray of a donkey, the clatter of wooden wheels along muddy tracks. Chickens scratch in the dirt, geese waddle through the lanes, and dogs bark at strangers who pass. For villagers, animals are not simply creatures. They are wealth, food, and labor. Cows provide milk, oxen plow the fields, sheep give wool, and pigs give themselves. At sunrise, peasants stir in their huts. Mothers stoke the hearth, coaxing embers back to flame. Children rub sleep from their eyes, already eager, or perhaps reluctant, to fetch water from the stream. Fathers step outside, feeling the damp grass beneath their feet. Glance at the village itself is small, yet alive. There might be a smithy where iron is hammered into nails, hinges, or tools. Perhaps a mill powered by water or wind, where grain is ground into coarse flour. And always there is the common pasture, where animals graze together under the watch of shepherds. Lanes are narrow, muddy, and often strewn with waste. There are no sewers here, no stone pavements. Rainwater collects in ruts, where pigs wallow and geese splash. Yet this is home, and generations have lived and died on this same patch of earth. Every village is tied to the Lord's estate. The peasants work their own strips. Also, the domain, the Lord's personal land. Several days each week are spent laboring not for themselves, but for him. They plough his fields, tend his flocks, and haul his timber. In return, they are allowed to live here, to farm their narrow strips, to survive. Even survival is not simple. The land is unpredictable. A storm may flatten crops. A late frost may kill seedlings. Too much rain brings rot. Too little, and the earth cracks with drought. For peasants, every year is a gamble, and the stakes are life or death. The manor court forces rules. The church demands a tithe, 1/10 of everything given to God's house. The Lord demands labor and rents. Nature demands endless toil. Still, there is rhythm in this life, the rhythm of sunrise and sunset, of seed and harvest, of feast days and fasts. The village awakens not just once each morning, but again and again with each turning season. It is easy centuries later to imagine these places as bleak, grey and joyless. But for those who lived here, life was not only hardship. There were moments of laughter by the hearth, songs sung at harvest, stories whispered under starry skies. A medieval village was a place of struggle, but also of community, of belonging, of roots sunk deep into the earth. As the sun rises higher, smoke curls upward, and the day begins in earnest. Men gather tools, women knead coarse loaves of bread, the children chase chickens across the yard. The church bell tolls, echoing through the still air. Another day has begun, and the village awakens once more. Step now into the heart of the village fields, where the true rhythm of medieval life beats. For most who lived in these times, their place in the world was already decided at birth. You were not a knight, nor a noble, nor a monarch. You were a peasant. And among peasants there were two paths, the villein and the freeman. A villein's life was one of obligation. The very soil beneath their feet was not their own. It belonged to the lord of the manor. They were tied to this land, bound by law and by custom. If he wished to leave the village, he could not simply wander off. Even to marry, he required the lord's permission. His children would inherit not only his home, but also his bondage. And yet, this was not slavery. A villein could not be bought or sold as a mere object, but their life was fenced by duty. In return for the right to farm their strips of land, they owed the lord labor and rent. A portion of every harvest, wheat, oats, barley, beans, went straight to the manor. In lean years, this loss could tip the balance between survival and starvation. Every week, he also gave his time. On certain days, he labored not for his family, but for the Lord, ploughing the domain, repairing hedges, hauling timber, carting stones. These days of unpaid toil were as binding as chains, and yet they were accepted as the natural order of things. Beside them lived the freemen. These peasants, though still of lowly station, carried a measure of freedom. They could move from one village to another, could seek better land, could even negotiate their rents in coin rather than in labor. In theory, a freeman had choices, though poverty still pressed heavily upon them. their independence was fragile, for it relied on wealth enough to pay rents or buy passage. Still, freemen were respected as men who stood somewhat apart, untethered by the strictest bonds of feudal law. To be a villain meant certainty. You had land, however modest, guaranteed by the Lord. To be a freeman meant risk, freedom to move, but the danger of losing everything if fortune failed. Both groups lived side by side, sowing seed, tending animals, repairing tools. But the villain lived in the shadow of obligation, while the free man lived in the shadow of uncertainty. Picture the villain at dawn, walking through the fields with an ox-drawn plough. The soil is heavy with clay, and the wooden plough struggles through it. Sweat drips even in cool spring air. Hands blister around the handles. Beside him, a child scatters seed from a sack, wheat for bread, barley for ale. Later in the year, at harvest, men and women swing sickles in unison. The golden fields fall, stalk by stalk, until wagons creak with grain. But not all this grain will fill the peasant's chest. The best share is carried to the Lord's barns, or measured carefully by the steward. Another portion, the tithe, goes to the church. What remains is divided among the family, stored against winter, or ground into coarse, dark bread. Songs, not the reality. What matters is endurance, to till the land, to survive each season, to fulfill obligations so that the right to live on this soil is never revoked. Yet within this hard life there is also pride. Pride in a well-kept strip, in animals that thrive, in children who grow strong. Villen's worth may not be written in charters, but it is carved into the earth itself. The relationship between Lord and Villen was both harsh and essential. Without peasants, Lord's lands would wither. His table would be empty, his coffers bare. Without the Lord's protection, Villen would have no claim to his land, no shield against raiders or rival lords. This uneasy bond was the backbone of the feudal world. Each owed the other, though not in equal measure. Lord gave law, order, and protection. The Villen gave his labor, his crops, his obedience. Duty, the freeman bound by necessity. Two paths, neither easy, yet both essential to the survival of the medieval village. In this world, freedom was not measured by great rights or liberties. It was measured in the smallest of things. The ability to leave a village, to choose a spouse, to seek work elsewhere, for most such choices were out of reach. And so life remained steady, bound to the land, turning with the plough and the seasons, year after year. Thus the village breathes, held together by its villeins and freemen, two classes of peasants, distinct yet united in struggle. Thank you for spending this quiet moment in history with me here at Piece of the Past. If you enjoyed your stay in the candlelight, please subscribe so the next story finds you. Until then, may your nights be calm and your dreams timeless.